The film opens with a young woman named Frances McCullen. She works as a waitress at a restaurant in Manhattan, New York. On her way home from work, she accidentally sees a green handbag on a subway train seat. Without hesitation, Frances takes it with the intention of leaving it at the information center, but the place is already closed. She brings the bag home and tells her roommate Erica that she found a bag on the subway and intends to return it directly to its owner. Erica advises Frances not to be too kind and easily trust strangers, especially since she is in the big city of New York, where many crimes are committed nowadays. However, after listening to Erica, she still intends to return the bag. Then they watch a movie at the theater, and Frances becomes sad because she misses her mother, who always took her to the movies. Her mom died exactly a year ago because of her cancer, and she is also not very close to her father, especially since her father has remarried and is too busy with his work, making Frances very sad. The next day, Frances visits the home of the bag's owner, a woman named Greta Heidegg. Greta invites her in for coffee as a thank you for Frances's kindness. Amidst their conversation, they hear a strange thumping sound from the wall next to the piano. Greta claims it's the sound of construction workers. Greta shares that she has been long abandoned by her husband, and her only daughter, Nicola, is in Paris pursuing her music studies. Hearing Greta's story, Frances is reminded of her mother. She suggests Greta adopt a dog for companionship so she won't be lonely. Unfortunately, Greta is not too keen on the idea, as she cannot replace her beloved dog that passed away a long time ago. After that, they became as close as mother and daughter. Frances also told her about her dead mother. Greta looked sad and said she would love Frances like her own child. Erica, as a friend, is a little suspicious and regrets Frances's attitude towards her, especially since Frances rejects Erica's invitation and chooses to be with Greta. Erica also disagrees if Frances considers Greta as her mother, but Frances doesn't listen to her. That night was special for Frances and Greta, where they felt they were destined to meet. However, something happens when Frances looks for a candle in a cabinet. She instead finds a closet full of green handbags identical to the one she found on the subway. And behind that, there was a yellow note with a name and phone number. Frances was also shocked to see a note impersonating her with a phone number. Frances panicked and was shocked to find out that Greta had deceived her. She bluntly did not continue with her dinner, claimed she felt unwell, and hurried home. Once at the apartment, she immediately told Erica about what Greta had done. Erica suspected that Greta had planned all this to deceive people and make Frances an object for herself. The relationship between Greta and Frances didn't end there. Greta kept contacting and following Frances. She ignored her, but the more she was ignored, the more Greta kept contacting her repeatedly until Frances felt disgusted and frightened, to the point where Greta came to where Frances worked. Frances asked her boss for help to send Greta away, but to no avail. She had no choice but to face her. Greta and Frances talked, and Frances told her about what she found in the cabinet the night with Greta. Greta was quite shocked, and she apologized, wanting to start a new relationship with Frances. However, this was naturally rejected by Frances, and she asked Greta not to meet her again. Seeing Frances disappointed in her, Greta did not stay silent. She became even more obsessive. Greta apologized, admitting her mistakes and promising not to repeat them, hoping Frances would understand because she had fallen into a pit of loneliness after being left by her child and husband. Frances, hearing this, felt pity and fear that something unwanted might happen to her. However, Frances continued her activities as usual. She still worked on the weekends, and unexpectedly Greta stood right in front of the restaurant where Frances worked. She stood still and kept watching towards the restaurant until nightfall. Frances was scared. She called the police, but they couldn't do anything and told Frances to ignore her. When Frances was about to go home, Greta was no longer seen in front of the restaurant. She quickly checked the CCTV and saw that the situation was safe. She then hurried to her apartment. On the way to the apartment, Greta appeared again at the subway station. Frances was shocked, and luckily she managed to escape from Greta. Once at the apartment, she immediately went to the elevator to get to her room. When the elevator opened, again Greta suddenly appeared. Frances, so shocked, finally asked what Greta really wanted. Greta only answered that she wanted to talk to her properly. She had tried to talk to Frances, but she was always ignored. Greta couldn't be treated like this, so she threw a piece of gum at Frances and left her. Finally, Frances and Erica tried to report her to the police, but the process took a long time, requiring 1 month until the trial could begin. Hope faded. Frances had to face it anyway. Seeing Greta's behavior towards her, she worried about the dog adopted by Greta. Frances finally investigated by going to Greta's house, but she found a box in Greta's trash can. Frances found a letter for Nicola, where the address was not in Paris. However, she sent a voicemail because there was no answer to the number listed in the letter. The night of terror happened again. This time the terror befell Erica. That night Erica was at a bar alone, and Frances received a picture message from Greta. When she opened it, she saw a photo of Erica. Frances panicked and immediately contacted Erica, urging her to come home quickly, but Erica's movements continued to be followed by Greta, who sent her photos of Erica. Seeing her friend threatened, she quickly picked up Erica in a taxi, and fortunately, Erica deliberately met up with Frances. The next day, Frances received a call from Nicola, asking her to meet. At that meeting, Frances was shocked by several facts that Nicola had actually committed suicide 4 years ago, and Nicola never lived in Paris. Moreover, Greta's French accent was fake, and she was actually from Hungary. Greta was a sick woman. Hearing all the stories from Nicola's ex-boyfriend, Frances couldn't believe she could meet a woman like Greta. That night, while Frances was working, her boss told her to hang up the phone and serve the reservation guests. Frances hurried and served the arriving guests, and she was shocked that the guest was Greta. Frances still served her professionally, but she told her friend to call the police immediately because she had a bad feeling about Greta. And sure enough, Greta yelled and cursed at Frances, causing a commotion in the restaurant. Everyone in the restaurant was scared, and Greta was quickly secured by the officers and taken to the police station. The next day, Frances made sure whether Greta's case could be taken to court, or if she was released, and the police answered that Greta had been released. This made Frances furious and angry. Frances intended to leave Manhattan, but first, she thought if she left, Greta would still be here. Then Erica suggested to Frances that Greta disappear quietly. Erica instructed her to meet Greta, apologize, and give her a farewell greeting, pretending she would meet her again. That way, Greta would forget Frances and look for other prey. Frances agreed to Erica's advice. She finally met Greta at a church. Frances apologized, saying it was all her fault, and told Greta to stay strong and face her problems wisely. Then Frances bid farewell to Greta, saying that she would pack her things and leave Manhattan for a while the next day. Greta offered to help Frances pack, but Frances refused. They hugged each other for the last time. The next day, Frances was seen cycling, and she hadn't packed at all. Once at the apartment, she warmed up coffee and drank it calmly because her problem with Greta was over. But of course it wasn't that easy. She felt strange when her plant was watered with spilled water. She called out for Erica, but there was no answer. Frances felt weak and powerless, and it turned out Greta emerged from Erica's room. Greta drugged her drink, and then Greta took Frances and packed some of her belongings to make it seem as though Frances had left the apartment. Upon arriving home, Greta opened a secret room next to the piano and placed Frances in a box. Greta took her phone, and Frances then woke up and tried to open the box. Greta approached her and said that this was a box of lies, where Frances had deceived her because she had not really packed up and left Manhattan. Frances was terrified and asked Greta not to close the box. Greta left Frances and locked it from the outside. Greta then played the piano so that Frances's screams would not be heard by anyone. That night, her father called Frances with a voicemail and told her to call her back so as not to arouse suspicion. Greta replied to the message by sending an old photo with Erica, pretending that Frances was on vacation. Greta also sent a photo to Erica, claiming that she was on vacation with her father. Meanwhile, Frances was treated like her own child. She was taught to play the piano and slept with her, of course, with the sedatives Greta provided. In addition, her father left a voicemail on Erica's apartment phone number saying that he would visit. Upon arrival, he asked about Frances's whereabouts, and Erica, at that moment, became suspicious that Frances had been kidnapped by Greta. Her father did not remain idle and hired a detective to find his daughter. One morning, Greta invited Frances to cook with her. Seeing an opportunity, Frances did not hesitate to cut Greta's finger with a knife and hit her. Greta screamed and fell unconscious. Finally, Frances tried to escape as quickly as she could but could not find the house key. She eventually headed to the basement, hoping she could get out quickly, but unexpectedly found a woman's corpse. When she tried to help her, suddenly Greta came and drugged her. After Frances woke up, she was tied to a bed. It did not take long for her father's detective to come and check the house. Suddenly, Greta appeared and asked what he was doing. The detective immediately asked about Frances. Greta, not wanting to arouse suspicion, lied and asked the detective to talk inside the house. They talked, and Frances realized someone had come. Hearing this, Greta excused it as the sound of her dog that she had not fed yet. While Greta feeding her dog, the detective went straight to the sound and found a door next to the piano. Before he could open it, Greta suddenly appeared and injected a sedative into his neck. The detective immediately weakened and was helpless. He tried to get up and shoot Greta but missed. Without hesitation, Greta took the gun and shot him until he died. Greta then took the body to the basement and cleaned the entire house. Then, Greta resumed her actions to find the next victim by placing her green bag on the subway. It did not take long for the next victim to come and deliver the bag to Greta's house. As usual, Greta asked the person for dinner and to chat. They talked about many things, and the thudding sound made by Frances was very loud. Once again, Greta covered it up with the same excuse. Greta sat back down and continued the conversation, but suddenly she looked very weak and helpless. It turned out that the woman was Erica. While Erica was searching for Frances, Frances heard Erica calling her name. She tried to make noise so that Erica could find her, and luckily Erica found Frances. She immediately untied her and brought Frances out. However, when they got out, Greta's body suddenly disappeared. Erica panicked and stayed alert in case Greta appeared suddenly. And indeed, Greta emerged from behind Frances. But because of the sedatives, Greta passed out again. Then the two of them put Greta into a box and locked it. Frances was relieved, and finally, she could breathe fresh air again. And the film ends. If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe. Because by subscribing, you have supported me to make better videos. See you in the next video.